Boys and girls, we're vibing.
Good luck. We don't need luck. We don't need luck. This is Major League Journeymen. We're back for our second episode. Welcome into Gordo Taking L's, or this is Major League Journeymen again. That was Gordo Taking L's is our other podcast. We got a couple interesting topics we're running through today. But first and foremost, this is our second go round. So we took some feedback like any good pros. We watched the tape, right? Talk some shit to our teammates, listen to the coach. They pull us aside, put their arm around us. We got some critiques. I got a haircut. I ditched the gum. Thank you, Mom. Appreciate it. Listen to the producers. Got some headphones. I want to just clarify. I'm not the only one around here with technical difficulties. All right, Mr. McCarty, Mr. Gordon, but that's okay.
Are you going to introduce yourself to the people or no?
I come without an introduction necessary, but I will run through some of who I am. Dan Gargan here with you. 12 years playing professional soccer. We talked a little bit about our past on the last episode, but finished up with the Galaxy, won a championship with Mr. Gordon here. Another one of our esteemed colleagues, part of the tripod with Major League Journeymen. Gordo, his reputation speaks for itself. You know what? If you tuned in to last week's episode, you could call us Dax McCarty's fourth option behind Sasha Kleshton and Josie Altidore. We're not taking any personal offense. It's not the first time we haven't been chosen first off the bench. That's all right, Gordo.
You guys would be my third option then, if there was only two that came before Dan.
Well, Gordo's fourth. I was third. Gordo's fourth, right? Got
it. You guys are a package deal. All right. I don't separate you two. You are one and the same. You may as well be the same person.
Oh my goodness. That's scary. I think a lot of interesting conversations came out of last week. I got a lot of good feedback. Gordo, what did you hear from your circles, from your communication? What came back your way?
Really just more of me, less of you in that Canadian tuxedo. That was mostly, it's like, hey, if we can have a little bit more of you and what you're bringing and a little less of Gargan, Dax is fine. He's steady Eddie, whatever. That was mostly what was in my DMs.
Did people want to hear you doing more math?
Listen, this is going to be really, really bad for my mortgage career. Okay. I mean, everybody knows I can divide 20 divided by 4.
Oh, here we go.
Everybody knows it was 6. But Jack's helping out. No, that was a good one. I thought the feedback was good, man. I think we need to build from that. And I got a little bit of slack from my Mount Rushmore. I had a lot of journeymen, quote unquote, journeymen coming out of the woodwork like, yo, thanks for the shout out, but didn't get it. And I won't mention any names, but they're not on there for a reason, so I'm not going to give them any credit here.
You're okay. Yeah, I think you're safe. You did. I don't know if you didn't throw any bones to any of your pals though. You did go deep into the archives.
They're bums.
See, I like it.
Bums, dude.
I like it.
That was the biggest takeaway for me. It's like I was considering everybody a journeyman, but you're completely right, Gargs. Like there's bums and there's journeymen.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Dax, what'd you hear?
Yeah, man, good feedback. The boys in the locker room enjoyed it. They enjoyed the episode. Some of the guys watched on YouTube. Some of the guys listened on the way home from training. I had one of my journeymen that I picked for my Mount Rushmore. He reached out to me, and he was actually honored that I would say such nice things about him and put him on the Mount Rushmore. But I got great feedback. A lot of great feedback from my parents, my biggest supporters. My dad said we killed it. So you guys know if you impress Dart,
dude,
that's a really high bar to
giving you
clear.
High fives. That's saying something right there.
I think you guys, but he still called you guys pretty soft for your basketball performance at our house party we had a few years back in Chicago. Even though he injured his back and could barely walk, he still took you guys to the cleaners. That's what he said. That was what he said, not me.
Well, that sounds like the memory of an aging man. So, Dart, get your act together, pal. I was thinking about this, like the position that you're in, Dax, and and being able to kind of like walk back into the locker room. Gordo and I were doing this when we started Gargs and Gordo because we were in the locker room, and I was thinking about the moment that we actually went after NYCFC when they had Lampard, Pirlo, and David Villa, right? So we filmed this ridiculous spot. I don't know if you guys remember this when they were in the New York Times or the New York Magazine. They did this like ridiculous spot in wife beaters, and they were all kind of like glistening, and it looked outrageous. And it was also, it came out like 2 weeks before we played them. It was a Sunday afternoon ESPN game. And we were, I don't know, Gordo, what were we, like 2 or 3 episodes into the Gargs and Gordo? It wasn't deep into it. And it was a big game because NYC was flying. But Pirlo and Lampard and Villa, who, I mean, to be fair, I don't know if any one of them has seen the inside of a weight room. And they posed them in wife beaters. So we went after them and did this whole, did the episode and walked back into the locker room. And actually the first call that I got was from Chris Winger. So they're on the way out to LA, and they're on the team bus, and we dropped it on, I think Friday, the episode on Friday. And Winger calls me up and he's like, dude, you absolutely blasted them. And I was like, we went after him a little bit. This is 48 hours before the game, right before we're set to line up against Villa and Lampard and Pirlo in a massive game. And he's like, dude, we just showed him the video on the bus, and the entire bus is erupting and laughing and making fun of them and just absolutely destroying them. And then it was like, from there, it was kind of like, all right, everything's fair game. You remember dropping that, Gordo, going through that?
Which, what's funny about that is if we didn't do that, none of those teammates, I don't think, would have said anything because they're such big figures. They probably just would have let it go. And then we put them on blast, and then it kind of broke the ice for them, for their team, sure, right?
Yeah. And then we absolutely crushed NYCFC. So that was also big. I think we won 4-1
that was smart. You absolutely demoralized the big time players.
3 of the best.
I'm sure they were really concerned about us.
Yeah, they really cared.
They were really concerned. So I wanted to just touch on our Mount Rushmore. Did we actually clarify anything? Like I know that we threw some Mount Rushmores out there, but we went through, are there things that we can say are definitions for journeyman?
Yes, I clarified mine very clear's.
I know you clarified your Mount Rushmore, but in terms of the definition,
yes, I clarified my definition very clearly. Gordo had 3 very clearly defined for what his criteria was, and then he just threw Kai Kamara in there at the end and was like, all right, I guess I'm just going to go back on exactly what my criteria is. So yes, I feel good about my criteria, the guys that I chose, the careers that they had, the influence they had in their locker rooms, the amount of teams that they played for. I felt like my criteria was solid. Gordo, look, weird criteria for calling a journeyman a multiple championship winner. But ultimately, he completely lost the plot there when he was going for his 4th guy.
Not necessarily, in my opinion, because I see what you're coming at me with, but you don't have to be a multi champion. Okay, I know that was kind of the highlights of the guys that I picked. I get that, but what was clear is that you have to make that team better. Kai Kamara, still iffy, right? It does score a lot of goals, but hold on. Let's talk about Kai Kamara real quick, because Kai Kamara, he actually came up in conversation from some of the feedback that I got. Like, how is Kai Kamara not on your Mount Rushmore, or how are you considering him journeyman? When we go back to like what the definition of journeyman is, or the current journeyman definition, consistently reliable but not outstanding, right? And I think that we're kind of twisting that a little bit. I don't know how you can consider what he's done over his career to be less than outstanding. He's going to finish amongst the top 3, top 2, maybe he keeps going and hits the all time, but he will finish at the top of the record books for goals scored. You can't characterize that as anything less than outstanding. No, I agree. And when he was with Kansas City, he was a monster. He was a monster. Speaking of your boy Sapong that goes up to Toronto, that partnership they were tough. They were really tough. And if he stays there and doesn't go overseas, I think they win I think they win another championship, because they did win maybe after he left. But Though I remember guarding Kai on a corner kick, and I turned around and he jumped up and his crotch was in my face. Mm-hmm. That's how high he was. That's how high he was jumping. But
you with your credit card hops, dude, you couldn't leap over 2 credit cards.
My timing is impeccable. But that's what I get. That's what I got out of that.
Dax, the only thing you clarified is that you'd punch Sebi Salazar in the face if he ever called you a journeyman again. So what did you actually clarify?
That was when I was young and naive, and I took offense to that. But now that we are taking the word journeyman back to be a positive thing, I am embracing the term. For me, like we clarified, I agree with Gordo. Really good influence in the locker room, and you had to make your team better. You couldn't just be a guy who bounced around the league a lot and didn't play heavy minutes. That, for me, isn't a journeyman. I will be a little bit nicer in the way that I describe them, not as a bum, but more as just a very sparsely used role player. But for me, the journeyman, it always had to have a positive influence on the locker room and on the field. So you had to play heavy minutes, right? But if you're moving teams every 2 or 3 years, that is a journeyman. And I just want to touch on Kai really quickly. I think that Kai, obviously, his numbers speak for themselves. That is considered outstanding, but there's 2 things with that. One, this guy's an athletic specimen, so he's never injured. He's always fit, always healthy. And the way that he is, his mentality, he's always going to score goals. So would I describe him as outstanding? Absolutely. But think about it this way. The reason he scored so many goals is because he's been in the league so long. He's never won the Golden Boot, right? I don't think he's ever been up in the conversation for MVP, which typically goal scorers are the ones that are in that conversation, right? And so to me, it just speaks to his journeyman nature that he's been able to score goals that wherever he's gone, and yet teams have always somehow found him surplus to requirements, right? And so I think that Kai has had such an incredible career. You have to talk about him as one of the best goal scorers in MLS history because his numbers speak for themselves. Yep. But if we're going to put him in the same bar, in the same level, right, as some of these guys who are just at the top of their game, I think that's, I think that's tough to do.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. That's fair. I think we had some clarification. I just wanted to touch on it because I think it is important as this evolves. I also think that we probably need to come up with who our 3 are for Mount Rushmore. We all get 1 pick to put on our collective journeyman, and I'm gonna give you this episode to think on it. So don't give it to me right this second. I want to talk about a game that I watched. What'd you say?
Will it be a draft style?
You just get 1. You get 1. So we can pick. I think draft style is the way to go. But you get 1 pick. You get your first round draft pick, and there's only 3 draft picks. So We'll have to pick straws for who gets to go first. And then I think we add maybe the 4th is a rotating, and we see what some of our other guests come up with to see where their brains are.
Perfect.
But I've been trying to tune in to as many games as I can, and who I did catch was Mr. Dax McCarty this past weekend, picking up a big win against Atlanta. So I covered Atlanta for a number of years. I covered the best parts of their history. They're trying to, I don't know, I guess get relevant again. Is this a rivalry with Nashville right now, or have you guys sped past them?
Wow, that's coming in hot right out of the gate.
That's what we're doing.
That's what we do here.
It is a rivalry for sure. I have the utmost respect for Atlanta United. I think that the last couple of years have been difficult for them. I think there's been a lot of turnover, a lot of change. Maybe they haven't been able to find the right balance between how good they are going forward and, some issues in the back line. I think last year they would have been much better, but the injuries to Miles Robinson and Brad Guzan were absolute killers. As far as Nashville, I mean, we've gotten the better of them for the last 2 or 3 years. And I think that, not
a short amount of time, Dax.
Correct.
You guys have had their number for a while.
Yep. Since we've come into the league, I think we are maybe 6 or 7 games unbeaten against them right now. We've definitely had their number. And so I think Dax, for me,
can I interject? Why is it a rivalry in your opinion? Why? Is it a demographic thing?
Proximity.
Yeah.
Proximity. We played them our first game in history, right? 60, 70,000 people at Nissan Stadium. I think anytime you have proximity to a new city, to a new club, I think organically it always makes for a better situation amongst the fans and a little bit more of pride when you step on the field. That's exactly how it happened with the Red Bulls and NYCFC when NYCFC came in town, and that's exactly how it happened in LA. Right? With El Tráfico. So I think you're going to have that natural banter amongst the fans and that natural, willingness amongst the players to play a little bit harder every time they step on the field against that team. So look, Nashville, we take it very seriously, right? We take a lot of pride in the fact that Atlanta United, their blueprint for success is significantly different than ours is in Nashville. And I think that if you go based on the results on the field so far, that our blueprint in Nashville has shown to be the one that gets the job done in terms of head-to-head matchups, right? Well, they have an MLS Cup, they have they have an Open Cup, so you can't fault them for obviously their ability to win trophies. But in the last couple of years, head-to-head matchups, it isn't close, right? Nashville, we've gotten the better of them, and that's something I'm really proud of. Obviously, we need to get a trophy in the cabinet to be able to really get on their level.
So on Saturday, you guys. I was surprised a bit at how high you guys pressed them up the field. Was that I mean, obviously that was intentional, but where was that a diversion? I mean, where did you guys come into that?
Listen, I think at home, for our fans that have watched us play, and even neutrals who maybe have seen us play, I think the overriding thought when they watch us play is that this is a Nashville team that likes to sit deep. They like to sit deep. They like to absorb pressure, hit on the counterattack.
That's Gary Smith's DNA.
And I'm not going to deny that is the recipe that we've used for success. Now, this year, I think that we've wanted to kind of jumpstart our attack. So I think I got to give full credit to Gary and to our staff for saying, let's tweak our formation a little bit. Let's start to press teams a little bit higher up the field, especially when we're at home. And let's see if that will give us joy for our attacking players. We'll win the ball closer to their goal. We'll spend less time trying to transition, right? We'll be closer to the goal to be able to have quick counterattacks. I think it's helped. I think it's been very, very successful in terms of how we played against LAFC in the first half and how we played against Atlanta. And it's caught teams off guard a little bit. I think Atlanta United, if you watch that game, I think they were a little bit surprised at how well we pressed them in the first half. They couldn't get out of their own end, and of course
they couldn't touch it. You guys were all over them, and with Almada and some of the other players that they have in their midfield, I mean, the expectation from my end is that, okay, they'll pass out of this because they have superior ability. No offense to you, Dax, but superior ability on the field from an offensive standpoint, and they got nowhere near it. I mean, you guys smothered them.
And that's I think what we are capable of doing. We just haven't always shown that in the past. And so, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that we're always going to consistently be a team that presses teams high up the field like we did. I think there's nuance involved in all of this. I think that every game will present you a different problem. But for Atlanta United, we knew that it was an important game for us. National TV game at home in front of our fans. We wanted to give them something to get behind us with. And that high energy, high pressure to start the game, right? Winning the ball high up the field, getting shots off, getting set pieces, not allowing them to get a foothold in the game was really important for us setting the tone. And I think you saw the rest of the game, Dan, other than a super questionable penalty call. It was really difficult for Atlanta United to get a hold in the game. And I thought we were the deserved winners. Should have been 3-0 though.
I don't think it was close.
How tight is your field? Is it pretty small?
No. It's a big field actually. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
You guys made it look small. That's with the pressure, you guys made it look really tight. There wasn't a lot of space.
And that's when you play in a diamond, Gordo. As you know, you are a tactical guru. The diamond is supposed to make the field small, right? You're supposed to condense the middle of the field. You're supposed to make it really difficult to play through. And a little tactical tweak and a little nuance
that's
from
like
that game
right there.
Sure. Thiago Almada, 22 years old, Argentinian kid, won the World Cup with Argentina, playing with Messi, right? This guy is a very good player. He started the season well. Gargs, I'm sure you've seen him play plenty.
Dude, he's be phenomenal.
He's one of the best playmakers in the league. And if you saw him, he was drifting out wide constantly to find the ball and try to find the game.
He wanted to be nowhere near you, Dax. And I mean, I think
I don't know if it was necessarily me, but just in general, the formation helps us secure the middle of the field. And so when you have a guy like Almada drifting out wide to try to find the game, that's where you want him. And he still was able to find some good chances. He was still able to find some good passes, but he's a world-class player. You're never going to be able to stop everything.
Yeah, you
but
can't
for us,
everything.
Our game plan worked exactly how we wanted it to. And that could be a big boon for us going forward, man. Hopefully we can turn that result into a couple wins in a row here.
Statman Jack, I want you to roll the film of this Muppet, Dax McCarty, and what he was doing after the game as a father. Let's take a quick look at this.
Listen,
Classic Dax here.
Hold on, Dax. I don't need commentary. Let's just watch how beautiful this is. It's so son. Good. It's so good. I mean, the handoff between you and Jen also was so special, and Class. You just went straight for a beeline. What, all right, now talk us through it. What do we got going on here?
Look at that baby's belly. Look how full he is.
Hey, the fact that you used your baby to get him to stop, there's no way he stops to talk to you without the baby. That's one of the best moves I've ever seen. It just makes you, it takes all the aggression out of you, and then he's like, oh yeah, he just wants to talk and like show me his baby, and then you just start going into your going
after him.
I just wanted my little guy Owen to meet the ref. Be like, look at this guy. Yeah.
I didn't see you ask him for an autograph though.
So in the moment, right, I obviously didn't know the refs were walking off the field, wanted to bring the little guy out there. Everyone's buzzing. My oldest is running around playing soccer. I turn around and the refs are right there. And me and Joe Dickerson lock eyes. And I think in that moment, he knew what was going to happen right then and there. So it's funny when you watch the video back, I look very animated. You guys know me, very animated guy, very, I'm not afraid to voice my opinion. I felt in the moment that I was extremely calm. And the conversation was respectful. And I want to give credit to Joe Dickerson here, because I think a lot of refs in that moment, they might just, essentially tell you to F off in no uncertain terms and be like, I don't want to talk about it. I made the call that I made. But Joe, he was very approachable and he engaged me, and we had a good conversation about what occurred, what he saw, and the VAR, which I think we'll touch on VAR here in a little bit. But to me, it was really important for him to get my side of the story. I got his side. And quite honestly, I have more respect for him now that he was able to give me the time of day, walk me through how he saw it, right? Mm-hmm. And I probably would have been a lot meaner and a lot more hostile and aggressive if we would have dropped points, right? The fact that we won kind of diffused the situation and made it easier to talk to him about it. But yeah, the baby there, Owen with the headphones on. Shout out to my sister-in-law who actually captured the video. My wife is trying to take credit on the socials for that, but that was my sister-in-law getting that quality
Dude,
film. But
that is gold. Before let's talk about the specific PK in question. Hold on, Gordo, did you see this or no?
I'm watching it right now. I've watched it about 30 times. I'm ready.
So Dex, it's a PK, 100%.
Come on, guys.
100,000%. That's a penalty.
100%.
So here's where I disagree with you. How often do you guys see incidental contact happen in the box that doesn't go called? It happens all the time. It happens all the time.
That was not incidental contact. He baited you into it. You stuck your leg out, and he's on the other side of you.
First of all, he initiates the contact. Second of all, there is contact. I'm not going to sit here and say there's not. There is. It's clear as day. I felt it. Was the contact enough to go down? No. But in the moment he goes down, that's fine. Joe Dickerson, my big issue with this is he sees the play. Like, this isn't where his view is not obstructed. He sees the play very clearly, and he says that's not a penalty. So then we play on, the ball goes out of bounds. Now he's going back to VAR. For me, and this is what I told him, the issue with VAR is that it has taken referees making decisions in the moment completely out of their hands, because they know they have a fail-safe. They know, okay, maybe I'm going to let this one go, but the VAR will tell me if I made a mistake or not, blah, blah, blah. But you guys know as well as I do that a bunch of tackles that happen in soccer, a bunch of contact that happens in soccer, there's a spectrum. Some of them can be interpreted as fouls. Some of them won't be interpreted as fouls. In the moment, Joe Dickerson interpreted it as not a foul. Right? And there is contact, sure. My issue with it is going back in VAR and saying, yes, this is a clear and obvious error, because that is the issue with the terminology of VAR. Is it clear and obvious? To me, that's not a clear and obvious mistake. If he calls it in the moment, if he calls the penalty in the moment, I'm not going to be happy with it, but I'm going to accept it, and I'm going to say, you interpret it as a foul, I can't argue it.
But isn't that what VAR is?
That's what it's there for. It's a fail-safe for the four things, right? A clear and obvious missed penalty.
But it's not clear and obvious. That's where we'll disagree. That is not a clear and obvious mistake. It is not clear and obvious for me that is a foul.
If that ball doesn't roll by him, who was it again that you fouled?
Rossetto.
So if that ball doesn't roll by him, then maybe you have an argument. But otherwise, that ball was directly played to him. It rolls by him.
Right, and he was facing away from goal. Had absolutely zero chance to score.
You still took him down inside the box.
He initiates the contact. That's where we differ in opinion.
Nah, I don't side with VAR or referees very often, but I'm unfortunately going to have to side with this one.
Bigger men can disagree on whether it's a foul or not. I'm not saying that there wasn't any contact, because there was. My big issue is that he doesn't call it in the moment and then overturns it on VAR. That threshold is not enough for me to overturn a call on VAR, and that was what I told him. And by the way, Gargs, he was kind of the opinion that I had a good point. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, because you're holding a baby and he wants to go home and eat.
Exactly.
He's hungry, dude.
That's the key.
Hey, so and let me just say, I don't think that you get him hard, Dax. I don't, and I think it's a soft foul, but you knock his leg out that he's got, and he wasn't diving. It just, you lifted up his leg and it made him go down.
There's contact, but it's not enough for him to go down. He embellished it, which is totally fair. You're going to go down in the moment. That's not a problem. But I think he initiates the contact. My leg doesn't move towards him.
He established his position to roll off you. He didn't initiate contact. He established position.
Listen, this is great. I love you. I love you guys disagreeing with me for the pod. I love it. This is great banter. I love it.
I think he turns out of this and then he nets it upper.
You think he turns out of it and has a left-footed banger top corner?
I don't think either sides are going to back down right now. So let's talk about VAR as a whole and the effect that it does have on the game, because I think these reviews are getting longer and longer. And Dax, you're now living it on a day-to-day. Give me you know what? Why don't you give me sign it, or is it good? Is it bad? Where are we at? Where are you at with it?
VAR is overwhelmingly a good thing for the game.
Okay.
That's where I stand. So that's how I'm being I'm being honest with my opinion on the penalty kick. VAR is an overwhelmingly good thing for the game. My issue is just the terminology and how it's interpreted. Okay? A clear and obvious error needs that is where you need to use it. Okay? If a referee sees a play and he interprets it as not a foul, then I don't think that he should go back and have it re-refereed.
But that's the whole point. That's the whole point of VAR is you can't cover everything and you're missing things.
Yes, that's if the referee doesn't see it.
If it's clear and obvious in the moment, he's going to call it.
Thank you. Thank you, Gordo.
Some things that are questionable, and they're going to go back and take a look.
You're making my point for me. If it's clear and obvious in the moment, you're going to go back. You're going to call it right away. But that's where I have the issue, is that referees are now knowing that they have the Wizard of Oz above them, who is saying, "Hey, I'm going to be able to help you if you miss something, or if you feel like you don't want to call something." I don't think the game should be ref like that. I don't think the game should be ref like that.
I agree. I know what point you're making, but I think it's in some instances. And listen, I've changed my view on VAR. When it first came out, I thought it was awful. Okay, for the same reasons you feel you have your opinions about what happened with you this last weekend. Is I thought that they used it as a crutch, right? But I think that more often than not, they're getting it right. They're able to get these calls right and go back and take a look. The problem that I've always had with MLS VAR, which you watch the Prem, you watch other leagues, I think they get it right 99% of the time, and they do it really fast. The problem is I don't think that our referees, when they go and take a look, I don't think they always get it right.
They don't.
I think sometimes
that's a massive problem. I think that's where I stand. I'm with you, Gordo.
That's what bothers me. How can you go take a look at this? And Dax, this could be to your point or against your point, right? Because neither of us are right. It could be a foul. It could not be a foul. But if he's going to not call it, okay, and I'll make your point for you. If he's not going to call it, and then he's going to go there, he obviously saw what you did.
Exactly.
Right?
That's my whole point.
And then he goes there, and then he takes a look at it, and then he overturns it.
Yeah, but are we good enough with referees at this level? Right. So, like, what are we talking about here? Because the reality is they need the help. They need the help.
Gargs, we're talking about what makes the game beautiful, right? It's that human element of, yes, there tons of plays in soccer can be interpreted in a bunch of different ways. So 50% of referees could see what I did against Atlanta United and say, that's a penalty, I'm going to call it right now. And the other 50% can say, it's not enough contact for him to go down, I'm not going to give a penalty. So why now are we saying, okay, if the referee has a clear view and he sees the play and he determines in the moment that it is not a foul, that is what he has chosen to do. So,
and I'm with you. I understand that. And Bruce Arena, who gets fined for his comments, calls the clear and obvious phony baloney, which makes me laugh because he also gets lucky against Cincinnati. So they're on the wrong side of it against Columbus, right? They go to VAR and they ultimately end up scoring, extends the game, and he's frustrated about it. He's got comments about the fourth official. Let me read them. The fourth, this is classic Bruce, is unbelievable. The fourth official was pretty useless for the entire game. And then for some reason, she then voiced her opinion 98 and a half minutes into the game. Pretty useless. I feel like that's what he used to call me after games. But he takes offense. But to be fair, and to your point, Gordo, they go back and they look at Andrew Farrell, who brings down Acosta, took down Acosta in the box in, I don't know what minute it was, but big game, New England, Cincinnati. Definite PK for me, definite PK. And they ultimately decide they wave it off. The clear and obvious is tough, and I think what you're saying, Gordo, is spot on. I don't think the Prem uses it as often because they trust their referees more. So they go to it for offside, for goal line, for maybe red card offense, right? That you might have missed. Yeah. But this whole, like, the gray area is never leaving the game, and that's also part of why we love it. Like, hey, the guy missed the call, so maybe you're onto something here, Dax. But I do think that VAR has to be there, and I also think that you fouled him, and it was a PK. So they got it right ultimately.
So they got it wrong going to VAR and overturning the call because it doesn't clear the clear and obvious threshold. But yes, I think VAR is overwhelmingly good for the game. You have to get the important calls right. But let's be honest, guys, we can't go back and re-referee every single play. The ref still has a job to do. Let him do his job. Let him see the game and make a call in the moment that he either thinks is right or wrong. That's it.
Yeah.
It's not a VAR issue. It's a referee issue.
All right, so Soccer Hall of Fame is inducting arguably the greatest of all time in Landon Donovan this weekend. Gordo, I'm starting with you. Is Landon the best of all time? Is it Clint Dempsey? Who is it?
I'm going Landon.
Why?
I don't think that there's a wrong answer here. I love Clint and I respect the hell out of his career, but I'm going to give it to Landon because I think he had more production from a winger position instead of Clint in the forward spot. He's got more accolades, and I think that he did it a little bit longer than Clint did. You can obviously, Clint had a better international career club wise, but I'm going to give it to Landon.
Dax?
Yep, Gordo for once in his life is not wrong. But I would like to cheat a little bit and provide a little bit more color and a little bit more nuance here. If we're going GOAT, if you have a gun to my head, say, who's the greatest player to ever play for the U.S. men's national team? It is Landon Donovan for sure. But if you're going, who is the best goal scorer to ever play in U.S. men's national team history? I'm going Clint because Clint was a killer. Yeah. All Clint cared about was scoring goals and helping the team in that way. Now, Landon was more versatile. I think Landon could do more things on the field. I think he was more of a facilitator and a playmaker than Clint was. But as far as pure goal scoring ability, can you do it with your left foot? Can you do it with your right foot? Can you do it with your head? Can you score goals when it just deflects off you and you don't even know anything about it? Clint could do all that. So for me, yes, Landon's the GOAT soccer player of all time. In terms of U.S. men's national team, Clint as a goal scorer, I would take him.
See, I'm going to... lining up against Clint Dempsey was a real handful every single time he did it. But I can't take him as the greatest of all time. Landon, and I'll go one step further than you are. Gordo, and doesn't take anything away from Clint, because Clint was a hell of a player, but this is not a debate. And for anybody that's taken Clint Dempsey in any way, shape, or form, I think you are so off base from what Landon, one, provided to the game every single time he stepped on the field, and two, what he did throughout his career. There's two things that I think for me really stuck out. And Landon was, number one, he wore the mantle of being the greatest of all time starting at 14 years old. He was the greatest of all time as soon as he stepped on the field, from there on out. And he lived it every single day. He lived it every time he put on a shirt for the U.S. men's national team. He lived it when he went overseas and he struggled. He lived it when he came back and was in San Jose scoring goals and became the face of the league. And then he lived it with the Galaxy. And then 13 consecutive All-Star appearances, goals, caps, all those things, plus World Cups. Appeared in more World Cups than anybody outside of DeMarcus, right? Or tied with DeMarcus. So for me, that's number one. Number two, I also think that he was aware as a teammate and in his role. And that for me is what differentiated him from Clint. You're absolutely right, Dax. Clint was a killer, and Clint was focused on one thing, and that was putting the ball in the back of the net. Landon could do that, could also be a playmaker, could also be a role player, also made every single player around him better every single time he was on the field. I mean, and granted, listen, I didn't play with Clint. I played against Clint. I was fortunate enough to play with Landon for a few years, and he was phenomenal every single day. Very rarely did he make a mistake. So I think for me, it's not a debate. And I think it's kind of crazy that it's still an ongoing conversation.
Hey man, that's the fun about our show. We all agreed on one thing. That's crazy, actually.
How about the Galaxy, though? Let's talk a little bit about Chicharito, because that image that's going around, I mean, does that more perfectly encapsulate who the Galaxy are right now?
I mean, it's just crazy. Chicharito, first thing I noticed, he likes to wear his little, man undies. They're not sliders, they're whitey tighties, I don't know how that guys feel comfortable wearing those. I guess he never slide tackles, and so he never gets the little strawberries on his legs. But I think that's a perfect microcosm, this picture of the LA Galaxy season right now. I think everything from the offseason stuff going on with Chris Klein to Greg Vanney's comments being extremely defensive about how they started the season, to Chicharito being injured and, now coming back and showing his frustration in these games that they're losing. I think the Galaxy are in real trouble. And I think that there's a lot that is going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. For me, they still have one of the best midfields in the league. With Brugman, Puig, and Delgado. I think that they're always going to be able to control games. I just think that they need to get Chicharito some help. They don't score enough goals, and they're still a little bit leaky defensively, right? And so for me, I have a bold statement. Even though the Galaxy absolutely stink right now, I still think they're going to make the playoffs. I think Greg Vanney is a fantastic coach, and I think they turn it around. Now, is making the playoffs enough for this Galaxy team? In my opinion, no, because you guys played there. You guys both know the expectations of that fan base and around the league, that this is a premier club that shouldn't just be fighting to make the playoffs. They should be fighting to win championships. And so
Gordo,
will they do that? I don't know.
Former champ with the Galaxy. How are you feeling about this organization?
It's sad to see, man, on a multitude of levels.
That's a big word for you.
Yeah, it is.
Good for you, buddy.
I just, you hate to see a club that you love struggle so deeply, right? And there's such a rift between the fans and the front office right now. And it's tough to watch from, I'm a Galaxy supporter, obviously. And then you're watching, we'll get into LAFC here in a minute, but you're watching them last night, and they're going to go for their second, or they're going to go for the Champions League Cup, right? Mm-hmm. They have an opportunity to win more trophies, and we're sitting over here, we're fighting against each other, ourselves. We're fighting against ourselves, and we can't sort it out on the field. I don't know what the answer is. I love Chris Klein as a person, and he's an ex-teammate of mine. He's a mentor of mine. I can't say enough great things about him, and he's had some success. But something has to change. I don't think this is going to end well for the front office. I mean, something has to change. I don't think that there's any magical system, because they're not winning this year, and for them to win or make the playoffs, it's not enough, because as we all know, we've all played a lot of MLS seasons. Everybody's in the mix at the end. Everybody goes through highs and lows, and everybody has a chance the last 8 games to have a run and to get in, right? So yeah, I mean, it's sad to see, and this picture is just really telling of what they're going through.
So for me, man, it's tough to see. Like you said, Gordo, it's tough to watch. I would say that I was very passionate about this off season and kind of where it's headed. I thought Vanny's comments were interesting when they came out about how defensive he was, but also how he positioned himself as caring more than everybody else, which I thought was an interesting kind of dig at these fans that, they pay a lot of money to be a part of this organization, and they give up a lot of time. Greg is getting paid just like we were. We were getting paid to be a part of an organization. And that struck me as like, okay, there's something wrong here. There is something wrong here, because they're feeling personally attacked, Greg and the front office, obviously, which is not a good place to be for a team, for a mentality. It's a tough place to be. But the thing that strikes me is, one of the biggest pieces of personal pride that I learned as a player was coming into the Galaxy environment and the expectations and the standards that you had to hold yourself to on a daily basis. It was unlike any other place that I had played. And that doesn't take away from the organizations that I played with before this. But the standard that Landon held, that Robbie held, that Beckham held, that Omar and AJ held, that's, you can go through the list. As soon as you put a Galaxy shirt on, there's a different standard, and there's a different line that you have to take. And every time you walk into any stadium, anywhere, they know that the Galaxy are here, and they have become irrelevant. And I don't. And they're
relevant. They're relevant, Gargs, in a bad way.
In the bad way, right? What I was going to finish with is the only reason they are relevant right now is by the media that is picking up things to put them continually out there, not for what they've been relevant for before. And now you take it one step further and you watch this LAFC team play Philly last night, which is, a great representation of two very good organizations with clear DNA, clear idea about what they want to do. And they're sprinting past them. And it's tough to see. And that picture right there is a pretty good representation of, which is also wild. I bet every single person within the Galaxy organization says they feel that way. Fans, Klein, Vanny, Jovan, it doesn't matter. Take your pick. They all feel that way, and that level of frustration, unfortunately, does not lead to wins or results. And the bar is not getting into the playoffs. That is nowhere near the bar. Cannot be ever for the Galaxy. So it's a tough spot. But speaking of the other side of town, LAFC Philly, LAFC puts a stamp on Philly last night on their way to the Champions League. I watched both legs. I thought Philly absolutely dominated LAFC in Philly, but missed their chances. And then you have last night where it's, whatever, it's an even game, but then Bizo takes himself out of the game, takes himself out of position, takes the team out of position to advance. Really tough for me to see a Philly team that I'm a fan of in Jim Curtin and of their weight seemingly on a weekly basis to go in and have to bow out like that. But LAFC they are a juggernaut, man. They are talented. Gordo, you called it. You called an LAFC win. Did you expect to see the result last night that we saw?
No, I thought it was disappointing. I think to your point, they missed their chances, man. I think they knew it. When Acosta scored that late goal in Philly, they knew their chances were slim to none heading into LA. That was the game, and they didn't put away their chances. Last night was just disappointing to watch as just a non-biased fan of having two teams that could represent the MLS in the Champions final. I wish it was a better game. I thought that it was. Philly wasn't going to be dangerous. For me, they had a lot of possession in the back, but they didn't have a lot of dangerous ideas going forward.
Dude, Martinez being out and then shifting Gazdag a little bit further back in the field, that really hurt them.
Yeah, but I thought that if they didn't get that silly red card, I mean that was the disappointing thing for me because it ruined the game.
It ended it.
It ruined it. It was over at that moment. I'm not even going to lie. I watched 10 more minutes of it and then I turned it off because I knew it was going to happen. Yeah. But I thought it ruined the game for Philly because if you stay one goal down, they take an early goal. But if you stay one goal down, anything can happen in the end. They can throw numbers forward and make it ugly and scrap one, just like kind of LA did in Philly. But they didn't even give themselves that chance.
They didn't have that chance. Dax, I want to ask you a little bit different of a take on this. Now that Seattle has climbed the mountain and has won the Champions League, I think everybody in all MLS circles were pulling for them to win. And for me, I hate the Sounders, but I wanted to see them win. Are you in the same boat now, wanting LAFC to win? So that are you a fan of LAFC, or is that kind of gone?
I'm a fan of teams doing things right, and if I'm playing against LAFC, of course we're trying to win, we're trying to beat them. But now that we are, Nashville, we're not in CONCACAF Champions League. I'm a fan of teams that go about their business the right way and build teams in a very interesting and intriguing way that are then shown the fruits of that labor with success. And LAFC, we just finished talking about it with the Galaxy. LAFC have methodically and overwhelmingly passed the Galaxy for relevance in LA and also success. And they've done it with how they've built their roster. And they are easily the deepest team in MLS by far. I think they started the game with Opoku and Cifuentes on the bench, both of whom have significant interest, I think, significant European interest from abroad, and they're bringing these guys off the bench. Not just that, I was thinking about the fact that in 179 minutes, Philly was able to keep Carlos Vela and Denny Bouanga quiet. And then, of course, Bouanga ruins my narrative and scores the third goal last night. But dude, imagine being able to keep those guys quiet. I mean, they don't score a goal. They're not really that. Sure, exactly. But again, you keep those two guys quiet, it doesn't matter. They can hurt you in so many different ways. They can hurt you on set pieces. They can hurt you when they bring guys off the bench. They can hurt you by playing more direct. Right? And so that for me is just so impressive about LAFC. Their depth, the way that they're coached, how Steve Cherundolo has come in and made this his team. They don't have to win pretty anymore. They can play ugly soccer and get the job done. And for me, the most interesting thing from last night, Gargs, was the tactical shift that
was
put
big.
Kellen Acosta next to Ilie Sanchez deep in midfield. It completely rendered Gazdag totally irrelevant. And I don't think Gazdag had his best game, but he is a very good player. I think he had one chance. He had one shot from the top of the box that John McCarthy made a good save on. But other than that play, he didn't have a foothold in the game. And he is the one that makes Philly dangerous. He's the one that makes them go. And I thought, listen, Gordo actually made a great point. He doesn't do it often, but I need to highlight this. He made a great point. Philly lost this series when they let Kellen Acosta score at the end of that game in Philly. Okay, that was when they lost this series, because if they go to LA up 1-0 and they're able to play direct, sit deep, use their speed on the counterattack, I think that they have a much better chance of advancing. But once they gave up that goal to Kellen and once Bizo got sent off, the series was over. So credit to LAFC in that part. Credit to LAFC.
I think they actually lost it a lot earlier because we were talking after that game. I thought it should have been 4-5-1. Philly. They missed way too many chances at home in a game like that. They could score on the road, but they didn't do it.
Sure.
The who stood out for me from Philly though was the kid Carranza. He was all over the place, and I'm starting to see why Jim Curtin is frustrated with where he's at because of the consistency. Because you see games like that, and you're like, wow, this kid can play, and then you see him and he floats in and out. And he's just nowhere to be found. But he does take a lot of pressure off Gazdag.
Yep. No, he's a good player. Look, they've built a good team in Philly. They have a clear identity. I think that once they win their first trophy, which they still, I don't think have won a major trophy outside of the Supporter Shield, which you guys know I'm a Supporter Shield truther. But I think once they win a U.S. Open Cup, an MLS Cup, I think that that's going to take them to the next level.
I think Philly needs help, man. They need to add a couple pieces this summer because that crew's Jim's been riding them pretty hard for a while now, and they've had close to very high levels of success, but haven't quite gotten there. But just looking at, you're talking about LAFC's roster, and you're looking at the bench that Jim is potentially going to. You're not bringing on Opoku, and you're not bringing on Acosta in the 60th minute. You're not doing those things, and that's the difference. We're talking about the top of the top of the heap. How about Kansas City and what's going on in Kansas City? So I'll just throw this out there because I want to keep this brief. One of the icons of this league in Peter Vermees, is he on his way out? Are you signing this? Is he on the hot seat? Is he on his way out? Will he be in the seat on June 1st? Or has he stretched himself enough where he's got a leash that goes through the season? 5-year deal in February. But
the guy just signed a new 5-year deal.
He's aware of it. He knows that it's poor.
I think that this is a really difficult situation because I have the utmost respect for Peter Vermees and what he's been able to accomplish in a smaller market like Kansas City. To me, it looks like the team needs a change. I'm never going to advocate for anyone losing their jobs, but Kansas City has scored 3 goals in 10 games, I think. They're winless in 10 games. I think it's the worst start. in MLS history. So, look, at the end of the day, obviously, we don't get paid to make those decisions. I think it's a difficult decision for Kansas City. I think you need to give him a few more games to sort things out because we know in MLS, a quick 3-game winning streak and you're already back in the playoff mix, right? But if this continues, if they continue to struggle and continue to not get results, I don't see how they don't make a change.
But I want to say their next 3 games are like Seattle, LAFC, and somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, You need to give Peter till the summer to make it right because he's earned that. But again, if it's not, then, I think he's got 2 roles, right? He's the head coach. He's the sporting director. I think he's earned the right for them to get them out of this hole. I just don't know how long his leash is, but it's really crazy to see.
I think when a team tanks like this or acts like this, I think that the coach or the front office has lost the locker room. I think the coach has lost the players. Okay, because I don't think it's that difficult to win a game and score more goals than they have scored in the MLS in the first, especially in the first 3-4 months of the season, while teams are still trying to get their groove and trying to and try to solidify kind of what they got going. But I don't think it's that hard. So I think he's lost the players. And that's what it says to me from the outside. Do I know that? No. And does Peter deserve to make it right? Yes. If they don't start winning, I don't know. I mean, in June, if you're looking at it, if you're the owner, what is firing Peter Vermees? I guess getting a coach in there that can start to make adjustments. But I think that. I don't know if he would.
I think that's a good point, Gordo. If there's not a better candidate out there to replace him, you have to stick with him because this guy has a history and a track record of success. Right. So unless you can go,
there's plenty of candidates out there, and let's be honest, what Gordo is saying is probably fair. You could throw not any voice, but a new voice, a fresh voice, will change the locker room. There's always a bump whenever there's a change.
Squad. They have players to win. They have a decent.
Johnny
squad.
Russell. Did you see that clip? He looked like a broken man. He is a broken man, which is crazy because he was a badass in this league for a while.
When he first came out.
Here's my scenario. Neither one of you said yes or no on whether he'd be in a seat in June. I don't think he's going to be on the sideline in June. I do think that he's going to stay the sporting director. I think he'll resign from his head coaching responsibilities, bring in another voice, and I think that's the way they move forward because I think you're both right. He's built it. Sporting Kansas City is Peter Vermees. And
agreed.
And he has done a very, very good job of being consistently above average, consistently very good. We're talking about what the parameters are for a journeyman, right? He does it season in, season out. And
I think that's doing him a disservice, man. I think they've been consistently excellent.
Excellent.
They've won trophies. They've won MLS Cup and 2 or 3 Open Cups in the last, 8 years. And I think that's better than a lot of other teams in MLS.
Absolutely.
So they have had success.
I don't know if that's excellent though. But I hear what you're saying. He's definitely deserved a stretch. But I don't see him on a bench in June. I think they're going to keep losing. And they need
it'll be interesting to see how the next couple of games go, Gargs. If they do have, I think Seattle and LAFC. I mean, geez, that's tough.
Murderers Row up next. All right, boys. Well, that does it for us. Episode 2 in the books.
We have to say before we sign off, we will have a guest on eventually, a very special first guest on eventually. We do not know when that will be, but we hope it's going to be on for the next episode.
Dex is so excited. Dex, I don't know if I've seen
it's my Rolodex.
This much of a
you said it incorrectly. This is my Rolodex that's getting us our first guest, not Gordo's.
Dax is working this relationship, which is why it hasn't materialized yet.
Dax, if you need me to make a call and get your guest on, I'm happy to do it for you. All right.
He's a big fan of you, Gordo. I gotta say, I don't know why. Well, actually, I do know why. We might touch on that when he's on.
Can I just go on the record for saying I think I've had a Michael Jordan the flu symptom game this episode. I've been on my deathbed the last 3 or 4 years. I had an excellent performance tonight.
Wow. Well, if you don't say so yourself, because no one else was giving you that.
I'd like to thank myself for being me.
That's enough out of you.
It's a good thing you drank all that whiskey before you came on here.
All right, boys. Good talking. We'll catch up.